pieces. But just to remind you what Landis had been talking about, we are recording this session. It's going to be available on YouTube. And additionally, my PowerPoint, which kind of has some more instructions, will also be available after the recording is done. Okay, so first and foremost, just talking about Excel, I want to get into what we're looking at today. First things, we're going to define a couple of key topics about Excel, because one of the things that can be really frustrating with it is when you start looking for resources, it feels like they're written in a different language. So just making sure that we are familiar with what are all the different pieces, the tools that we're looking at, so that can help our understanding. Formatting. So formatting is really important with Excel because this determines how Excel is reading your information. We've all had the experience where you enter in a number and Excel makes it look completely different and we're not sure why. We're going to address that, and we're going to talk about how we can make that work for us. And then we have two other pieces that are related to each other: filtering and sorting. So with both of these tools, we are looking to highlight data or rearrange data based on criteria that we're setting out. But they function a little bit differently from each other. And so we're going to go into those. These are, I would say, some of the lowest effort, biggest impact tools that you can use in Excel to make your life a little easier when you're working with these kind of reports. Okay. So when we're talking about Excel, within Excel, there's the different pieces of a file. So an Excel file is technically a workbook. So within that workbook, we're going to start really small, and then we're going to get bigger and bigger. So the smallest piece that you have is a cell. So most people are probably familiar with this. And again, if I'm going through pieces and you're saying, well, I already knew that, again, keep in mind, the intention here is that it's a course for beginners. And even if you are pretty familiar with Excel, I do feel confident that you might get one or two things that you didn't know before that you can walk away with. So a cell is any single square or rectangle. Like this is an example of one cell here. A range is when you have a group of cells selected, and you can do that either by clicking and dragging with your mouse, and there's other ways to select ranges as well. A sheet is basically one page in your workbook. So when you're looking at Excel, this would be at the bottom of your screen. So if you have that file that Landis shared in the chat, you can open that up and you should see here. There'll be a little bit of differences between the picture here and what you're looking at, just because this was kind of a work in progress. But yeah, it's the same thing. These are different sheets that you can navigate to within your workbook. And then, as mentioned, the workbook is the whole thing put together. Okay. All right. So though that was a peek at the bottom of your screen, if you look at the top, the menu across the top, if you don't know this term, it can be really helpful. This term is called the ribbon. So that whole big menu at the top of Excel, Word, PowerPoint, any Microsoft Office tool you're using, that's called the ribbon. And a ribbon always has a home tab. And the home tab is kind of like the greatest hits. That's what you open up on when you start up a file. You're on the greatest hits. It has a little bit from data. It has a little bit of page layout. It's one of the things that people want to see most often. But then when you want to get into a specific topic, like how am I going to work with my data, or how is it going to look on the page, that's when you can go to data or view or these other tabs that we see here. So the ribbon is the whole menu across the top. The tabs are the little options along the top that you can click to get more specific tools. And a formula, honestly, we won't be talking too much about formulas today, but Excel is great for formulas. That is where you are having the system do some kind of function. So it might be you're taking an average of a bunch of numbers, or it could be that you're trying to add things together. So we're not going to go deep into that, but it will come up if you're working with Excel. And one of the main reasons that I want to talk about the lingo here is not because we're going to go into such detail now, but after this whirlwind 30 minutes, when you are back and dealing with an Excel file, it can be tough to try to figure out, how do I look for help? What's the best way to go forward? And so knowing those specific terms can be a big, and that's a great note, Nicole. I see that you had to click edit in Excel to get into the menu. So thanks for including that. So if you click on the the playground link that Landis was sharing. Yeah, you'll have to click that edit in Excel if it's prompting you. And you might also need, and I'm not sure exactly how it looks, but you might have a yellow bar at the top here, and you might have to click Edit Workbook when you open it. I'm not sure if that's the case, but you do get that sometimes when you download an Excel file or open it up from a shared server. You might need to, there might be a yellow band here that's basically stopping you from editing, and you have to click Edit Workbook to make that work. Okay. So if you do find yourself stuck in Excel, I know this should be working. I know there is a way to do it. Oh, we don't have permission to edit. Okay. Well, this might be a bit of a demo. We can troubleshoot that. I'm sure Landis is on the case. I'm just going to proceed, and I'll give a demo in the meantime, and then we can circle back. So if you do need help with Excel, what I recommend above all is go to Google. Microsoft Excel and other tools, they have like a built-in help function, but I find those built-in help functions to be extremely unhelpful. So what I always do is I just Google the issue that I'm dealing with, and I would always include the version of Excel that you're working with. So I believe on all Island Health computers, we're running Excel 2016. There might be some computers that have updated to Excel 365, or that'll be coming in the near future. But for now, it's Excel 2016. And that's important because sometimes the menus change, the options change, the wording changes from one version to another. Okay, so in this example, yeah, I just did format, date, Excel 2016. And you can get all sorts of great results. There's usually going to, Excel is a topic that confuses a lot of people. And so there are lots of YouTube videos out that kind of walk you through the process step by step. If you have access to LinkedIn Learning, there's a lot of different Excel courses on there. Yeah, there's a lot of different areas where you can search, but including as much of kind of the official language as possible, and also including the version that you're working with, that is Excel 2016, that's going to really increase the effectiveness of your search when you're looking for help. Right. So the first topic we're going to look at is a big one. So this is called formatting. So formatting is one term that describes a whole range of things that you can change in Excel. So what it boils down to is, what does Excel see and what do I see? So with formatting, a real frustration point is that, and I touched on it earlier, but when you're dealing with numbers, Excel seems to not be able to figure out exactly how to read a number in a lot of cases. And so I want to show you, I'm going to go to my sample data set here. So this is the file that we have loaded. The idea here is that this is supposed to look just like a report you would pull from the Learning Hub. And it has, it's not pretty to look at. It's got a lot of information kind of crammed together. Some of the information is so long that you can't even see all the details. And yeah, it's just it needs some TLC before we can present this to a manager, or before we can really gain any useful information from here. So this is the raw data, but I'll invite you to look down at the bottom, and let's go to the Format tab, the Format page. And so the idea here is that you have different pages where you can play around with formatting, with filtering, and with sorting, the topics we're covering today. If you want to just do all of your playing on one sheet, that's fine. Do however you want. This is your file to play around with. Just the idea is that, yeah, you really want to be able to get your hands on these things and start to use them. So a big example of formatting is dates. Dates can be extremely frustrating in Excel, and that is a symptom of formatting and formatting confusion. So I'd like to invite you to, using the scroll bar, or you can also use the arrows on your keyboard, go all the way to the right until you get to column P. So column P is our completed date. But when we look at this, we can say, well, this does not look like any date to me. It's just 44,679. Why? How is that a date? Well, there is a complicated answer, but we're not going to get into it. But the important thing is, we need to tell Excel to show it in a different way, in a way that we can read it as a date, and that Excel knows that it's also a date. And this is where we get into number formatting, right here. So with number formatting, what you would do is first, to start the formatting, what you want to do is highlight all the data that you're looking at that you want to change. So in this case, you could click and drag, but that's going to, we've got like 150 records here. That's going to take a lot of time. So what you can do instead is just click on the P column at the top. And when you click on that P, you can see with this gray and green outline that it highlights all of the numbers in that column. So that's going to be the fastest way to make sure that every single cell in this column is properly formatted. So when I click on that, with numbers, there are shortcuts up here. So there's a little area in the Home tab. We don't even have to leave that greatest hits section. When we're in the middle of the top, you see that there is a number field. And within here, there's all sorts of different buttons, and there's also a drop-down list. And so in this drop-down list, two of the choices, this is basically a shortcut for formatting dates. So where you're saying, hey, Excel, you see the number 44679, but you know what? I know that that is a date. So I need to display this as a date. So you can click on short date. And what that will do is it looks through and it changes all of the dates to meet that formula, to meet that that formatting as you like. You could also do, if you're curious what the long date looks like, well, you can click long date, and then that gives you the day of the week, the written out month, and that kind of more robust date if you really want all the details. But otherwise, I would just go, oops, no, see, I clicked a button, but I didn't have it selected. So, it's really easy to make mistakes in Excel. And I don't have it mentioned, but if you are not aware of the undo and redo shortcuts, Control Z will undo the last move that you made. And so I'm going to undo this formatting in the long form and just get it back to the short form. So Control Z is undo, and Control Y is redo. If you undo something, you say, oh, wait, I went back too far. Just redo it. And, I might do that 40 times when I'm working on an Excel document because it's so easy to make a little mistake, and then you just reverse it and be done with it. Okay. Now there are other things that you can format. So other things that you can format are the font, all sorts of different things. I'll go back to my list here. Font, color of the cell, is there a border to the cell, any pieces along those lines. And to access the full formatting menu, what you want to do is highlight the information that you want to format. So, it doesn't really matter. In this case, I'll just choose session code. But the important thing is that you want a selection chosen, and then you can right-click on your mouse. And right-clicking is always a good idea to see kind of what your options are. And when you right-click, you get the choice to format cells here. I see, is there a specific way to write the input so that Excel knows how to put it into a date correctly? That's a good question. And so if you want more help or background with the numbers rather than just those shortcuts, the Format Cells menu is a great place to look. Because when we click into Format Cells, it has the same options for numbers, but you can actually expand it a bit more in terms of, if I click on dates, it doesn't just give me that short date, long date. You actually get all of these different choices for how you could have your date appear. Do you want the full month written out, with the year? Do you want the day of the week? So you can kind of play, Dina, per your question, you can kind of play around with those options, and then you can check to make sure that how you want it to look is, that your entry matches how Excel is going to display. And so again, to get to this format menu, I highlighted the options, the cells I wanted to change. I right-clicked anywhere into the gray area that's selected, and I clicked Format Cells here. And then you can see you have other options like, I want it to be a fraction, I want it to be a percentage. And even then you get lots of, follow-up choices of, if you're choosing time, is it on AM and PM, or is it on a 24-hour clock? There's all sorts of different choices. And I won't get too deep into it because we need to move on, but there are other choices here, like alignment. Where is the text going to line up in your cell? You can even change the angle if you want to be really fancy, if you want vertically displayed text, if you're getting ready for a big presentation or something. And another helpful tool here that you may have encountered is wrap text. What wrap text is, Excel isn't great with displaying text. So if you have like a big paragraph that has to fit in somewhere, rather than being a paragraph, it comes out as one giant long line. Well, what wrap text does is that line will keep going, and then when it hits the end of your rectangle, it just goes down like you're working in like a regular text box in PowerPoint or in Word. So that wrap text can also be a big help just for how you're displaying things. Yeah, you could change the font, the border. Do you want like an outline or anything along those lines? And I will mention, there's a lot of places in Excel where you can like I mentioned, actually I didn't mention this, but there might be shortcuts available in one spot, but then there might be a more in-depth tool in another. So like we can change font and we can add borders using these shortcuts, but you can also do some making the by doing the selection and going to format cells. I saw the question, will that make the whole sheet wrap the text? Generally, with formatting will only impact the cells that you select. So, if you would have to select, and there is also a shortcut for wrap text here. Okay. Now, I just want to jump into the next topic. Thank you for those questions that have popped up. When you see this, you'll see there might be, there's a bit more detail about how you can select pieces. But I want to get into filtering. So filtering is a really useful tool. And this is an example where it's really perfect for hiding information that doesn't match what you're looking for and showing the information that you do want to highlight. So I'll invite you to come to the filter tab here, the filter sheet, sorry. Tabs are at the top, sheets are at the bottom. And with filters, they operate like a light switch. Filters for your document are either on or they're off. And so the first step of working with filters is to turn them on. To do that, what you want to do is click anywhere inside of your data. So any one cell inside your data. And then up here, there is a sort and filter button. So with this sort and filter, you'll see that there is the option for filter. And this turns on filters. Like I said, it's like a light switch. Filters are on or they're off. So by clicking filter, it turns it on. And what that does is it adds the drop-down. You can see that there's now a drop-down list next to every single one of our headers or pieces of data on the top row. And what a filter allows you to do is that you can select to only show certain pieces of information. So, in this case, we could only show certain last names. So I can just choose a few last names and then click OK, and then it's only going to display people who have that last name. Similarly, what would probably be more helpful is if you're looking at like different cost centers. So, okay, I want to only show people who had attended Nostromo Medical and click OK. Well, and now this is hiding all of the people who did not complete, who are not stationed at Nostromo, and only displaying the ones that are. So this can also be used on multiple levels. So you can have more than one filter active at a time. So, maybe I'm managing Nostromo and I say, oh, okay, well, so now I have all the people who I'm responsible for, but I also want to see anyone who is currently incomplete. So if you go over here, there's a column O, and there's a status here, and that has completed or incomplete. And so, I can go in here and I click status, and I say, okay, well, instead of showing everybody, just show me incomplete. And so now I have two filters active. And because of this, I have only a few results. And the same way that you can tell if you have filters on or off based on the arrows, if a filter is active, you will see this little icon. This little icon is like the little filter icon next to, instead of the drop-down arrow or next to a tiny drop-down arrow. So that's showing me that, yes, filters are active, and they're active on both my status and on my cost center name. Okay. So filters are really useful. Again, you can kind of use these to say, okay, don't show me this, show me that. This is what I want to highlight. But let's say that you're working with someone else, or you're passing this on to a manager to take review or something. And you might look at this, and if you don't know that there's a filter active, it could be really confusing. Wait a second, I should see 170 people here, but I only see 6. Well, what you can do, there's 2 surefire ways to tell that you have filters active, and I list them here. No, sorry, maybe I don't list them. If you look at the row numbers and they're blue, that indicates that a filter is active. So, like down here, the rest of my rows that don't have any data in, they are displaying as the typical black. My top 6 rows here, they have blue row numbers, and that tells me that there is a filter on. There's also a summary down at the bottom, and this is a summary of your filter. And so this says, based on the filters that you added, which was they need to be at Nostromo and they need to have an incomplete status, 6 of 174 records came back positive. So this is, again, if you're looking at a piece and you're like, well, I think there should be more, just look down here because this will just kind of be a summary of the filter, and it confirms that there is a filter. It confirms that there's a filter on. Yeah, and if row numbers are in blue, that also means filters are on. Okay. When you are done with filters, there's a few different ways you can turn them off. If you want to turn them off completely and you don't want those drop downs anymore, you could go back and click the filter button, and that will, get rid of them. You don't have the option to use them right away. Or you can click clear, and that leaves the drop down menus, but it clears any active filters that you had. So now instead of just seeing Nostromo people, we're seeing people from all sites, and it doesn't matter if they're completed or incomplete. One last thing I want to show with filters is that, the default is that you can choose any option that's already in your column, but there's also a really cool choice where you can do, like, if you highlight a number column, then you get number filters. If you're in text columns, you get a text filter. So like with number columns, I can say, okay, well, you know what? I need to show anyone who on their score, they scored less than 60 on their exam, because they'll need to retake the test. So I can say their test score is less than 60 and click OK. And then this is adding a filter, but I didn't have to go through and select 53, 51, 52. I didn't have to choose each one. I could just say, hey, your numbers, if it's less than this number, let's move on. Okay, we are really close to being out of time. So the very last thing I'm going to show you is sorting. With filters, it hides data that you don't want to see and it shows data that you want to see, but it doesn't actually change or move anything. Sorting, on the other hand, does move and rearrange information. So you have to be really careful with sorting and make sure that you're taking the proper steps. First step, you want to make sure that you have all of your data selected. If you have just a chunk of data selected, there could be Excel could get confused. It might rearrange within one little square, but all the stuff on the outside is now mismatched. So that's something to consider. And so, yeah, this is just the reminder that sorting will move the information around. So there are 2 ways to sort. There's a quick sort, and then there's a custom sort. So with quick sort, what you do is you click on any item. Let's say that you want to sort based on last name. You can go into last name, click on any single last name, and then you go to sort and filter, and then you'll see you have these easy options, sort A to Z or sort Z to A. And so if I want to just a pure alphabetical list, I click sort A to Z. And if you just have one column selected, one cell selected, it will automatically sort all your information. I was saying be careful, make sure you highlight everything. But yeah, that was, if you click just one, basically what Excel does is it keeps looking out to make sure it gets everything. The tricky part is if you highlight something like this and then try to sort. Okay, so that was the quick sort where you can click and then do sort, filter A to Z. And the more in-depth version is if you click on again, you just want to click on one cell, and then you can go to sort and filter. There is also the option here for custom sort. So with custom sort, what this allows you to do is have multiple levels of it. And so this can be really helpful. Well, first I want to sort by cost center, and then I want to sort based on last name or based on manager. And so you can say something like, yeah, I'm going to sort by cost center name. And you have the choice here to add level. And so you read through it like a sentence. So basically, first you're going to sort by cost center name, then I'm going to sort by last name, and you can choose, and then I'm going to sort by test score or something like that. Sure, smallest, largest to smallest. So something like this, you can go through, and then when you click OK, now it rearranges so it's all the cost center, and then it goes alphabetically. But the most notable thing is that did move my information. Okay, I know that was a whirlwind. Like I said, the PowerPoint has some of those instructions a bit more detailed. It will be shared. I saw also an ask if could be another one. There definitely can be another one. I'm open to it in the future. Like we're barely scratching the surface here, so yeah, a lot more to go on. But thank you so much for joining, and yeah, happy to share.
Thank you, Charlie. I really appreciate your time. I put everything in the chat for you folks to have access to. And like Charlie said, the presentation will be available shortly. He just has to edit out what we didn't get to cover today, and then we'll upload the presentation into the learning events materials. And when we do put it onto the YouTube, then we'll obviously sort of advertise that or let you folks know. And you may have a better chance of getting a part 2 if you answer the survey and beg and plead Charlie to do another one. So I can do as much sweet talking as I can, but it's not actually up to me. We rely on feedback from you folks and your requests and sort of collate all those things. So that might help too. So thank you for joining. And hopefully we'll get to see you in another learning burst. So we'll talk to you later. Thank you, Charlie. I'm going to stop recording.